Excellent. Jazakallah khair. So I'd like to apologize to you, all of you, our listeners, and our guests as well. Apparently, there were some technical issues with Zoom and live streaming, and so now we had to use a different method. Uh, but alhamdulillah, it's working now. So Jazakumullah khairah for joining us, Brother Fadl from all the way from New Jersey, and all our listeners as well. Alhamdulillah. This is our weekly Monday night discussion with um, various professionals in various fields. And today I have a very good friend as well, alhamdulillah, joining us, who is a professional tennis coach and, mashallah, a person who's has lots of various achievements. He's represented India in the Davis Cup. He has coached the U.S. Open in 2005, coached former world number one doubles player, and amongst many, many other things in college as well. He was ranked number one as a junior in India. And he runs his own tennis coaching place where he coaches private individuals as well as offers classes. So Brother Fazal, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Oh, so the whole time you couldn't?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you now. Yeah, we lost you for a little bit.
Yeah, we
No,
lost.
just for a little bit, the last 30 seconds.
Okay. So, Brother Fazal, I was saying if you could kindly please just go ahead and just speak a little bit about your journey into the tennis world from India, where you started off from, and how your journey led to where you are today, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. Jazakumullah khair, Mufti Saab. I feel a little humbled to be speaking in front of you guys. I know you consider me a friend, and it's a great honor, but you're great teachers, and it's just an honor to be with you and to be considered, to be invited to this majlis. With regards to my journey, I grew up in India. My father's family is from Hyderabad, and my father was actually a soccer player for India and was the captain of India and one of the greatest soccer players India has produced. And he has an award, Arjuna Award and Dronacharya, which is the highest award which is given to an athlete, and the highest award which is given to a coach.
I wasn't not aware of that. Okay, mashallah. So it really does run in the family.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. So alhamdulillah. So he, yes, he was very good. And my greatest thing, what my father always told me, because my dada used to play against the English, British, and I heard, he was quite the force, and he never took it, lying down. So we grew up with kind of spirit in India. And growing up, my dad always told me you have to be twice as good to be considered equal. So
Wow.
from a childhood, we had that spirit in us that we had to be very, very good, and everybody is there to put us down, but we have to do what we have to do to get ahead.
When he said that you got to be twice as good to be regarded equal, that's very deep. Did he mean against the British, or?
This is growing up in India. My father played for India, and so he had to face certain things.
Right. Especially probably being a Muslim, I'm sure there weren't that many other Muslim players on the teams.
Yes, that was the big thing. And when he came, he was 16 years old when he made the Indian team.
Wow.
And his father had died when he was 7 years old, and his coach from Hyderabad, Rahim Saab, took him over like a father. And so he was tough. He was raised without a father, and they saw some tough times. But so he was a self-made man. So my father always put me in a very he just inculcated in me and my brother a very deep sense of work ethic and never giving excuses. So what would be interesting for me was I was the older son. So I remember his friend was Akhtar Ali, who was like a father to me, and he took me when I was about 10 years old. And Akhtar uncle told my father flat in front of my face, you should focus on your younger son. He's got more talent. The older son's okay. So, I took that as a challenge. And 2 years later, I was number one in the state.
Wow.
And so it was always that journey. And then I remember, they always told me I was not very good I'm not going to be a national level player because I was state level player. Then by the time I was 18, I was number one in the country. So
Wow.
At that time, they said I couldn't be international level player. I was good to be a national level player. So long story short, and this is how interesting life is. I met a guy from America in Bombay. I was playing a tournament, and I was the last guy leaving the practice grounds. And he walked in and he said, "Hey, listen, do you think you give me like a hit, a warm up? The tournament starts tomorrow." So I was the last person I was practicing still. I said, "Yeah, sure." So we become really good friends. And he's like, "You got to go to America. You're wasting yourself here. You go to college there, and the world will open up." I was like, "Yeah, no, I'm not really interested." Blah blah blah. Well, and I was part of the junior Indian program and whatnot, and it was not really a good situation. But it was like how Allah had. It was just one of those things. And next thing we become really good friends. And 6 months later, I have this situation which happens around me that I leave the program and end up coming to America. And so my dad, I remember telling my dad that, I'm going to quit the Indian Academy and come back to home. And he's like, they will destroy you. They will never let you come back. They will never let you get. They're going to let you ahead. I said, "No, I don't care. I'm going. I just can't do this." It was a tough situation there. So anyways, I come to America, and 3 years later, I go back. In fact, the first year I went back, I lost first round in the Indian Nationals. So they were really mocking me and
So Fazal, so let me clarify. So you're saying you were in India and you went to America and then you decided you wanted to come back to India. Is that what you're saying?
No. So what happens? I went to school. That in the winter break we go back. So all the tournaments in India, the big tournaments, the national championships, and all that over winter break.
Okay.
So I went back to compete in that, and
I see.
so when I came back, I lost first round. It was to a really bad player. So they were super happy because I had left the academy, and they got a lot of flack from the newspapers because I was one of the better players because I was number one in the country, and I left the program. So I remember.
I see.
So the following year I didn't go back. Then the year after I went, and I won the entire tournament. And so they asked me to come for the Davis Cup trials. So so I told them I'm not coming because I've beaten everybody. Either I'm on the team or off the team. So they had to put me on the team, and they had to bite their tongue. So that was an interesting. There were so many interesting journeys, and then so once I made the Davis Cup team, I played for a few years and stuff. I traveled the world. That was one of the greatest experiences for me was being able to travel the world and meet different people with different languages who didn't speak, and just making the human connection. I've always liked people, human beings.
And this is as part of the Indian national team.
Yeah.
This is as part of the Indian national team, correct?
Yeah. So I want to become a professional tennis player. You go around the world and play and do all these things,
Right.
So that was there. And then after a while, I decided I wanted to come back and finish up my education because I turned pro my senior year. So my senior year, I decided to go play professionally. And then after a few years, when I come back, it was 2001. And actually, India was playing the US in the Davis Cup. And I was in the Indian team. And 9/11 happens, and what was interesting was I was in Los Angeles playing, so we got stuck, and it was I think anybody who's been in that era knows it was like a big shock, and I was not a practicing Muslim at that time, and you're just looking at this, and everybody's talking like Muslims did this, right? And you're like, you're not a practicing Muslim, but you still have that pride, like we're Muslims. This is not right. And I remember like it really like hit me. And then the next week I was going on a flight because I was supposed to report to camp because we were playing the U.S. In Winston-Salem, and I got held up at the airport. And I'm at a tennis player. I'm at the bookstore. This entire airport was sealed off, and like these guys come and said, "We need to talk to you," right? Wow. So you're like, "Oh my God, what happened?" You're like, these guys are fools. Anything can happen here. So you're like trying to Long story short, I was there for a little bit, and then I left. It was not fun. And then I decided that year to quit playing tennis in 2001. And then I came back to work, and I finished my schooling. And after schooling, I moved to Dallas actually. So Dallas, my journey started when I moved to Dallas. I got rid of all my possessions. So I just put what I could put in my 2-door car. I went to work there, and I don't know if I ever told you the story of Mufti Sab. So I always questioned why riba was bad. So I got a job as an interest rate derivatives trader for a big bank. Wow. I have no idea what this is. Like everybody told me it's a very prestigious job. You make a lot of money if you're successful. It's people who are, competitive, have, very quick on their feet, blah, 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 whatever. So I go there, I leave everything. I leave my stuff. I just, whatever I could pack in my 2-door car, I take to Dallas. I got rid of my TV. And I was in Dallas, and I remember that Ramadan, I fasted for the first time. And I was like, I want to learn the Quran and see why are we trying to kill everybody? And so then I started like reading the Quran, and I'm like, I'm not really a Muslim. And I started like looking for Sirah, and I find a Sirah book, and I started looking for lectures. And so I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then I'm in interest rate derivatives, and I'm trading interest rate. And now I'm seeing it's like Allah's like, listen, you wanted this answer, right? Here. So you are in this trading room, and you hear the conversation, and we're like, this is so bad. There's nothing good about this. The only good is like this guys who are making millions of dollars in a day. And so I think long story short, I ended up like, the market collapsed and all these things happened. And, I think my journey through the deen started at that time. And I was really like I had a passion for tennis because that was my blessing, and I worked really hard at it. And then I went to the corporate world. I absolutely detested it. I just didn't feel any benefit to people like what I was doing. It was not an enriching feeling. And so over time, I just got like, the market collapse. I actually ended up getting married. And then we moved to Philadelphia, moved back to Philadelphia. In the meantime, I was just teaching tennis on the side. Anybody who was like taking lessons from me, they said, oh, you're really a good teacher. This is what you should do. I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't think I can make money or doing all these things and blah, blah, blah. And so one day, this guy who knew me from my playing days from India, he reached out to me. He goes, Fazal Bhai, I'm going to Turkey. Do you want to come? I'm like, I was like one of that phase where you're just like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. So he's like, it sounds like interesting. So we went to Turkey, and he took me on this whole like prophetic tour, like all these historical places and, Eastern Turkey and all. It's amazing. Like we went and saw Ayyub alayhi Salam's grave and the city where Ibrahim alayhi Salam was supposed to have been born, where Nimrud, that whole episode take place in Urfa, Shanli Urfa, very close to the Syrian border. So it was just like a really amazing experience. And I came back, I started my academy, and I was just like, you know what? This is my gift. This is what Allah has given me. This is halal because I earned from my, hand. I'm sweating for my living. I'm trying to help people. I really enjoy helping people, making people better. And so I started my own business that day. And what was interesting was at that time, I also learned that tijara was a sunnah of the Prophet, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And when I went to India around that time, my coach Akhtar uncle, who's like a father to me, he's just an amazing man. He said, so So he'd heard that I'd become a little bit more towards the religion, and he said, you know, when I was in Belgium, this Jewish man told me, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Muhammad was was a brilliant man. And I looked at him. I said, like, what do you mean? Like, how does this Jewish guy telling me about the Prophet? And he goes, you know, he told you guys to do tijara, a business, and stay united. You guys don't do, but we do. That's why we are so powerful.
Wow.
And so my coach at that time told me that. He's like, you know what? I didn't even realize that. So I was like, yeah. So we just started, and you know, I guess then my whole academy, I started this level 7 tennis academy back then. And you know, one of the things when I started my academy was based on 7 virtues, and I had read that the person with the highest character and highest manners goes to the highest Jannah, has the highest level of Jannah with the Prophet ﷺ. So I'm far from it, but I aspire that one day I can have a better character and better manners. And so that's my name of my company, Level 7, is based on 7 virtues: wisdom, knowledge, courage to do the right thing, industry, to work hard, courtesy, compassion, and contribution ultimately. And so
that's a lot in the name.
Yes, it's a lot of people don't know that. And you know, the name, the number 7 in the design is green, because I read the Prophet's favorite, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his favorite color was the green, and the green is the color of balance. So I have done that with that intention. Wallahi, Allah has been kind and generous beyond what my deserving is.
SubhanAllah. Jazakallah khair, Brother Fazal, for taking us on that beautiful, beautiful journey. And I think one thing what I see is that in the sports world, it's very hard to become famous, to become successful, to be up there, and then also have your deen. It seems like the people who make it up there are many times people who are. I mean, you have, of course, a few exceptions, most definitely, but most of the time you see that people come towards the deen after they leave that stardom.
Yeah.
Can you shed light on that? Do you feel your life was the same? Had you stayed at that level wherever you were, you feel like your deen would not have been where it is now? You think it came after you kind of left that lifestyle, or what? Or not necessarily?
No, so here's the interesting thing. I think had I had deen earlier on, I would have been a way better player, because to become a great player, a person has to have unbelievable character. It's like I always say, don't worry about the skill, focus on the will. You know, if you have the will, you will get the skill, because you will not stop until you get the skill. But if you don't have the will, it doesn't matter how much you have skill, you know, because it's ultimately that, you know, in Deen, one of the biggest things that I've learned is one of the best advices that I know from so many is consistency, you know, consistency in success and consistency in failure is very, very important. A person who's able to keep their head level and not get carried away by name, fame, all the things that come, will have a great career, because they're doing it because they love it, their passion. One of the things, like I try to tell my son, is you have a blessing, it's from Allah. He could have given it to anybody. If you use this to show the blessing that Allah has given you, and to honor it and to preserve it, and not to use it for the wrong, that can be ibadah for you, because that's your intention. But if you use it for the wrong things, it will not give you joy, and it will take you into bad situations.
So I was gonna say, so my background is psychology, and I was gonna say that what you're saying to me is fascinating. It's fascinating because, you know, sports is majority of it. I mean, you could tell me, you can answer this question for me, but as a professional athlete, so much of sports seems like it's in your mind, right? It's the mental game.
It's most everything. Like so the things that I tell, like in our sport, you have the skill with the hands, you have the speed with the legs, you have to have the sharp mind to make quick decisions, and then you have to have the heart. So I tell people, I can teach you hands, I can teach you legs to some extent, I can teach you how to be smart on the court, but I cannot teach you a heart. The heart of a champion, if you have it, you don't need anything else. If you don't have the heart of a champion, it doesn't matter what you have.
So,
Is that something? Is that something that can be
it's
developed?
interesting, and I'm a big I bring the basketball analogy to this because that's my one of my favorite sports, and Kobe Bryant comes to mind, and he's someone that, although he wasn't Muslim, one of the things that people learned from him, or at least the reason he inspired so many, was because of his istiqamah. They talk about this steadfastness, but obviously his was on a different thing. It was obviously basketball.
Yeah.
Where, when we have steadfastness on something, or you basically have a consistency, like you mentioned, and then that work ethic just comes naturally, flows from that.
100%. I mean, I think there's so much.
What
I
are your
mean,
thoughts on?
I think Muhammad Ali is like a great example. It's like Allah gave him honor, and they tried so hard to destroy him. And even in a country which has so much Islamophobia, there are cities and streets named after him, airports named after him, right? So,
Right.
I mean, I believe the sports teaches a lot about character, and I believe if we use it for the right things, and if we can teach our young people, like, what Muhammad Salah, I don't know if you know who Muhammad Salah is from Egypt.
Yes.
Soccer player,
Right.
If you hold on to your deen and you're strong about it, people will respect us. And that's the lesson that I've learned. I have, alhamdulillah, it's an aspiration to keep improving. And every little bit of honor that whatever I've gotten is because how I have tried to be as a Muslim. And I think people consider me like a good teacher. So I will share something with you. I have learned that the Prophet said, in terms of business, be mindful of the buyer, be mindful of the seller. Don't overcharge. Be generous, be kind, be always for the other side. It works very well. You speak with love and kindness as a teacher. Be just something like that. Just always trying to carry a smile on your face to people. This is, people may say I got awarded by the grace of Allah. I was awarded the coach of the year in this region 2 years ago.
MashaAllah.
And it's not my teaching. It's like it's my limited practice of Islam that I try to do on a daily basis. And I think if people would use that, sometimes what happens is people feel. I think in general, there is the pull of shayateen is very strong, and the nafs is strong. And especially when you become an athlete. I mean, as an athlete, we all have a certain ego that there's nobody better than us. And I think if you can manage that and ground that with the religion, I think you can be a deadly player or deadly athlete, because you're thankful, you're humble, you're hungry, but you're never arrogant, because it can go away any moment.
Brother Fazal, you talked about being a Muslim helps a person be level-headed, and I wanted to quote, just share a dua of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is "As'aluka kalimat al-haqqi fi al-rida wal-ghadab, wa as'aluka al-qasda fi al-faqri wal-ghina," which means, oh Allah, I ask you the ability to speak the truth, kalimat al-haqq, fi al-rida, in times of happiness, wal-ghadab, in the times of anger. Allow me always to say what's right, no matter what my emotional state may be. And the second thing is, asal al-qasd, oh Allah, allow me to lead a life of take the middle ground. Fil faqri wal ghina, whether I am poor or rich, whether times are of affluence or the times of difficulty, allow me always not to be overcautious or overspending, or too thrifty or too generous to the extent that you start losing your own basic things. So I think that, subhanAllah, that's the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which was very nice that you said that in sports you need that type of mentality, and that's what gives you success. But Brother Iqbal is here as well. I wanted him to, if he had a question he wanted to pose.
Sure.
Yeah. So I had a question regarding, mashallah, you're teaching. You probably teach quite a number of youth.
And,
yeah. Can you hear me?
Before Iqbal gets on, can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Hello.
No,
Jawad was going to say, one of the things.
You can hear Brother Iqbal.
Okay, go ahead, Iqbal.
Yeah.
Okay. So sorry. So the question I was going to ask was regarding teaching youth. Most of probably quite a number of the people that you teach are young, and I'd imagine probably quite a number of them are Muslims. How have you been able to inspire your Muslim students, at least, and maybe not even your non-Muslim students, through Islam, through the lens of Islam? And it seems like there's there's a lot of space there for you to be able to help them base their capabilities and base their focus on Islam while they're trying to attempt to be excellent athletes.
Yeah, that's a good question. To be completely frank, I always say it's interesting that I don't have enough Muslim students. In fact, I don't really have that many. The only kids that come are there's a few. The imam sent his kids. And I don't know, for whatever reason in the community, maybe there's not enough interest. So unfortunately, I don't have a lot of Muslims as students. There's been a few, but they unfortunately didn't have the same kind of commitment or consistency which is required to excel.
So let's talk about that. What do you think? What do you think that can be done in order to help Muslims be more involved in activities like this? Which, I mean, obviously, it's directly applicable to everything else in your life, right? If you're excellent, if you learn to be excellent at tennis or excellent at any sport, that can transfer into every facet of your life, including if you decide to go into the corporate world. I'm sure much of what you learned was applicable there.
100%. What was interesting, I had a very sort of competitive job, and I was flown around the country 4 different cities to go through my interviews. 90% of my interview was about sports, like how I handled pressure, what I did, what was my time management skills like, how was I at goal setting, how I was at my ambition, how I treated people around me. So I was kind of fascinated. Here I was expecting heavy math questions, and here they were asking me more about my really character questions. It's like, how do you do when things go bad, and how do you do when you don't know what to do, and things like that. I think the character building, I don't know why, we definitely, I think one of my goals really is to have my own academy, and then really I want to do stuff for the underprivileged kids, because I think with sports, especially if the player or the person is trained right and has the skill and has the wisdom, one of the that's why I love Mufti Azimuddin, and he knows it. I support Darul Islam to the best of my ability. We need people with the correct education, and so when most people don't know what our deen is, but when they see how we act, it brings honor to us, because our deen teaches us honor, and I think we need to have the work ethic, and we have to have the honor, we have to have the chivalry, we have to be men again. We have to really be responsible, things like coming on time, being respectful to the place you're around, cleaning up. I'm big on those kind of things. If somebody shows up late, I'll send them back. I just don't tolerate it. If I did that to my own son, you just don't, it happens because they think it's dad, so they'll just show up whenever they want. No, you're done. You don't take my time for granted, and you come here, you clean up after you leave, you come here, the place should look clean. If it was clean when you came, when you leave, it should look clean. It should not look that you are here. If anything, it should make the place better. Just small things like that is very, very important. I think sports, if you especially around the right kind of people, they can teach you a lot. They can teach you a lot of skills, just having good adab with people, learning how to face defeat, learning to work hard after failure, not quitting. I think the biggest thing is, to me, my life is that quote, "A winner never quits and a quitter never wins," which I had to give a talk at when I was in 7th grade in school. That's been my motto. And, I think in life in general, we're going to fail a lot. And when it comes to religion, Shaitan is always there. He's going to make people feel like despondent. And the key is to get back up one more time. And I personally try my best to remember that advice and just keep plugging away. And we have to tell our kids, you got to work hard, but you got to stay on the right course. You got to make sure you have those skills of showing up on time, being respectful, working harder than anybody else. We're not going to be lazy people. Doing every little thing to the best of its ability, to have ihsan in your work, not just being satisfied being mediocre. If your best effort is mediocre, I am very proud of you. And if your mediocre effort is your best effort, I don't care. That means you have a lot more to give. So give me more.
Very good.
Yeah.
I've been thinking. I really was thinking that when Dar es Salaam, the gym, and the whole entire seminary building gets completed, inshallah, with everyone's duas in the next few months, hopefully, and hopefully we get over this COVID issue as well, with Allah's grace. I was thinking like there is a need to have basketball camps and other football camps and tennis camps, etc., in the masjid, with the whole purpose of pushing our Muslim students to excel in these things and bringing sports and deen together. Because I think this is almost like a dichotomy. You see people who are great in, like you see that in other things. People are great in their academics are not really good in sports, and the ones who are in sports usually are not focused on their academics. And the same with Islam in sports as well. And what you've been saying so much is that Muhammad Ali is a great example of someone who practiced Islam out there and brought so much respect, not only to himself but to Muslims generally, because he brought out the Islamic teachings into the sports arena, and where really there's a lot of people who have no akhlaq, who have no etiquette. And he brought so much goodness out there. So I don't know, what do you think of that? Like, is this, have you already started doing stuff like this, or have you any examples of the country?
I always say, to be honest with you, the thing you have to do is start with the dads. The kids won't do what the fathers don't do. It's like a different thing. You have to change the culture. I remember I told this one kid, really nice kid, he came, his father brought him, he was a little bit overweight. I told the kid, like, listen, bud, super nice kid. I love the kid. He had some confidence issues because, he was not very socially, he could have been socially better. So he had a great time. And I told him, so I was like, listen, what I like you to do is every day for 5 minutes, you're going to run for as much as you can around your neighborhood, right? 5 minutes. So I said, you can turn on your clock, go 5 minutes. He comes to me next day and he goes, my mom said I don't need to run, I can just walk. So I was like, what do you tell that kid, right? So I was like, okay, listen to your mom, do the best, But so those are things, it needs to change at all level. We have to really become a sturdy people. When I look at the early Sahaba and I read their stories, and I see when they're going for these campaigns and they're sucking a date on the way, and you're thinking, I'm like, they're sucking a date on the way in like 120-degree weather and with all the stuff that they're wearing, okay? And at any moment, people are gonna be trying to kill them. And their food is a date, 3 pieces of dates, stuff like that. So it makes you think these guys are not lollipops. They're tough people. They're strong people. And it's not because they're like 8 feet tall. It's just because they have an amazing willpower. And those are things I think we really need to. Physical sturdiness brings the emotional sturdiness, because when you have gone past your breaking point, you can be broken. And we've trained. I remember when I was a kid, my dad used to take me to the race course in India in the summer, where there's run on sand. He'd tell me to take off my shoes and run barefoot on sand. It's like burning. It's like you feel your foot's gonna burn, And he would tell me, now imagine a tiger comes and he wants to eat you. What are you gonna say? Stop. I want you to run like you got a tiger chasing after you. And you're like, if you just picture that, you're running as fast as you can. You don't care how much it's burning. You're just running, right? So,
well, you could take Fazal and have him teach some of our students, and it would excel and make them excel even further in their academics. It sounds like he's describing a mental boot camp.
Yeah,
mental fortitude.
That's what it is. It is mental fortitude. It is learning to say no to yourself. is learning. When you quit, you're saying, no, I can go more. I have it in me.
I read that about a runner, right? Didn't he say that the running actually starts when the pain starts or something like that? When I forgot. I don't know if you guys remember that. He was a professional runner. He would just says that when the real thing begins when you're in pain and you start exerting yourself and you're like, done, I'm done.
Yeah.
Then every second you push yourself, that's when you're actually benefiting.
Right.
And I think that's the whole concept of mujahid. That's the whole concept of mujahidatul nafs. That's why the early mashayikh of tasawwuf and tazkiyah, they would make what they call riyadat, right? All the exercises, the spiritual exercises, which you hear about. People say, "Oh my God, that's crazy," right? Why did people do that? But they would basically completely destroy the nafs. They would make it do things that are just completely the nafs hates. I give an example, a simple, small example of a friend of mine when I was studying in South Africa. And he was senior to me, but a big inspiration to me in many ways, mashallah. And I remember, it's a small story, but I just remember it so well. That one day, both he and I were eating together lunch, and we had these big kunchas, they call them, like these big plates where 3-4 students eat together. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we all the students would be served in those. So myself, him, and maybe another 2 students were eating together, and it was a yakni palau on Saturday, so it's very sticky and a little greasy. So after we finished eating, we went to the tuck shop, what do you call the store where they sell all the sweets and burgers and stuff in the madrasa. So I buy myself my favorite Cadbury fruit and nut, and I tell him, hey, let me get one for you too. And he looked at it, and then he was about to choose a candy, and then he just walked out of this. He said, I'm waiting for you outside. And I was like, what? That's so weird. I said, you want anything? He said, no. So I purchased it and I went outside. I said, what was that about? You walked in the store with me. I took a chocolate, asked you, you were about to, and then you walked out. He said, I realized that my nafs wanted a chocolate. And I said, nah, I'm not going to give it to you today. I'm just gonna, I'm not going to bow down to you. And that's why I said no. And I was thinking, subhanAllah, an 18, 17-year-old student, this is what it means to control the nafs. That may Allah give us the strength, but this is the reality. If you can say no to your nafs, you can achieve so many things.
Yep. Yeah, mashallah, subhanAllah. I was just Arnold Schwarzenegger. So Schwarzenegger was giving a talk I just saw recently. He said he met Muhammad Ali, and he gave an amazing talk about Muhammad Ali, and I think everybody should see it. And he said when he met Muhammad Ali, he said, how many sit-ups do you do? And he said, I don't start counting until it hurts.
Yeah, that's probably what I was trying to say. Yeah, exactly. What I was thinking about that marathon runner too. Similar. Wow. Don't start counting until it hurts.
Yeah, and I think at the end.
Fazal,
Please.
No, go ahead, please.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was saying that. What I was talking about earlier with these guys is that you have an academy, and what you do essentially is you take on students, and the analogy and I was hearing about your story. The analogy to me is like, you're the sheikh and you're teaching these young murids, or these maybe middle-aged murids, whatever age they are. You're developing them, right? You're developing them, and more so their character in order to get them to excel on the tennis court, of course. The directed exercise that a sheikh would give to a student, a murid, and say, hey, you should do this, do this, do this, do this. And now that I've gotten to know you, let me add this to your regimen, and I think this will make you more well-rounded. So how do you see that, when you're working with your many clients, obviously, and obviously they're not Muslim, but do you see yourself in that position that you're sort of having to teach them about, life, essentially teach them character, teach them things that you didn't think you'd be teaching as a tennis player? You think you'd be teaching mechanics, but you're teaching the mechanics about right?
100%. I teach a lot of kids. We have like 500-600 kids in the program. So
Subhanallah.
And the kids, they go from a lot of the kids are all doing very well. My best kid's playing professional tennis. He just going to Pepperdine now. He's good. So
500-600. I'm afraid to ask you how many employees you have.
I do majority of the work myself. During the summer, I normally have about 10 to 11 people helping me. This summer, because of COVID, things are I'm 95% less. But alhamdulillah, inshallah, everything will come back. But what the thing is, I have people who've told me, I have parents, one of the families that I teach, this Jewish family, and I've told Mufti Azimuddin, I think of the story. I've never seen a man treat his parents with the kind of regard and respect that this man treats his old mother and father. They're billionaires. He'll come before his mother. He'll bring a chair. He'll bring an umbrella because she likes to come and watch his grandson. He'll come there. He'll hold her hand. He'll kiss her on the mouth, on her whatever cheeks. After say great to see you. He has a driver for her and a chauffeur all the time. He'll come. He'll hold her hand, walk with her like a child, and like that with his dad a few years ago. And in my first time when I went to Umrah and I came back, I remember, and Allah is the witness to this. I came back, and he was standing next to me. He goes, "Where were you? There's something different about you. There's a different light. I feel a different energy about you." And and I was like, "Wow, how can somebody like that pick it up?" And I remember, so we went to Spain one year. So we went on his private jet from Philadelphia to Spain. And so I was reading a book, and it was about the sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he was like, "What are you
sitting in a Jewish billionaire's private jet reading the sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?" Allahu Akbar.
Yeah.
That's just amazing how Allah works, man.
Yeah. So then he's like, "What are you reading?" I'm like, "I'm just reading this." He's like, you understand it's Arabic?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've been learning Arabic a little bit. I really like it." So he's like, "Can I see it?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." So he sees it, and he says, one of the sifat was like, the one who forgives all sins, one who gives with his hands open. And it was this magnanimous, and he literally covered his face. Like he was overawed. And his eyes, like, when your eyes roll up, and you like eyes open up and your eyes roll up, and he just covered his face with his hands, and he sat back, and almost like something hit him, and he goes, "Wow." And I mean, he's told me, he's like, "I just want my son to be around you," and if they're and these are really good people. I mean, he's somebody who wakes up at 3:00 in the morning every day, works out before he goes to work. He's a very big guy in a major pharmaceutical company. He does not have to work for a living. Their family is probably one of the wealthiest families in the world. His son is, I've coached him since he was 6 years old. He's 13 now. Except for one day when he flew back from London, he was tired. He didn't give me his best effort, but he never complained. He's never late. He's never rude. He works very, very hard. Smart kid, nice kid. And I told him, "Why don't you guys build a court in the house?" And he goes, "No, I want him to deal with everybody. I want him to see the real world, because that's not real world." And I was like, here's the man. They're multi-billionaires. There's not like 1 billion. There's multi-billions, and they're teaching this. And why are kids not getting up and working hard and doing all this? And he's like straight A student. He learns Mandarin. He plays tennis. He's a competitive tennis player. He's winning tournaments. He's doing that. And that's character. And I'm like, that's why these people have success in the dunya, because they have that kind of, I make dua for them all the time. And I ask you all to make dua. They're beautiful people, that Allah give them hidayah. And if one of these people come to deen because of me, I've done my part. So I see a lot of people like that. And I see this, people definitely, may Allah give me the ability to practice my deen as best as possible, overlook my shortcomings. But my intention is, may Allah give me the gift of silent dawah. I've read, I don't know if it was Hazrat Omar or Omar bin Abdul Aziz, and he said the best dawah is silent dawah, when your actions speak for you.
MashaAllah. I think one thing our listeners can benefit from this is that the job of dawah is really not just the job of the imam or the scholar of the masjid, number one. And every one of us has to be a da'i. And and you just said it, the da'wah is through your own actions. If we all become walking Qur'ans and walking seerahs of Rasulullah, millions of people, like how he just said, this Yahudi person is so inspired. He says, "I want my son to be in your suhbah." I mean, think about that. How many people, how many relatives, Muslim relatives will tell us that, hey, they want their kids in our suhbah? Let's just ask that. Okay, our own Muslim relatives, our uncles or aunts will say, "You know what, mashallah, I want my son or daughter to be with you." So here you have a non-Muslim saying that about his son. And that's because if we have the akhlaq of Rasulullah, if we have the dini ideals, then the one who's got a clean heart and whose heart has not been affected too much or be crooked that much, he will see the nur of Iman, he'll see the nur of the Quran, and will be guided towards that. So I think that's a message for our listeners, inshallah. One question one of the students sent to me said, how do you beat this mentality of I'm just not good at that? Like, especially in madrasa, we have subjects like sarf and nahu, right? Dr. Jawad, you've been studying this for a number of years too. And some people are good at stuff, and some people just say, oh, this is just not my thing.
Yeah.
This is not my thing. And they just write it off. They just like, if, for example, if I start teaching in Arabic halfway through the year, I know some students will just literally just shut down. They're just forget it, it's not me. And other students will try to struggle and make their way. So how do you overcome this type of mentality where if I don't get it, I'm never going to get it, it's not meant for me? I have students who struggle with public speaking, for example, and I tell them, inshallah, bit by bit you're going to become an amazing khatib. And like, no, forget it. I'm 20 years old. You see this mentality. I'm 20 years old, I'm 21 years old. If I don't have it by now, I'm never going to have it. So public speaking is not my sphere. I said, but you never worked on public speaking. You just came to madrasa at the age of 19. How can you write off this whole public speaking thing? As an alim, you have to give khutbahs, and this is part of the thing. So can you address that? Like, how do
for sure, I think this is a really good one for me. I personally, growing up, was super shy and extremely sort of like reserved. And when I came to America, I identified that I was scared of going in front of people, So the first class that I took in America was public speaking. And I remember, at the end of the day, whatever you are afraid of, that's what you got to attack. Because until you defeat what you're afraid of, you cannot defeat the world. Because at the end of the day, you know where you've given up. And I can lose, but I don't want to ever say I didn't try. That's the one thing. Other thing I would say is, so think about like a person climbing stairs. You got to climb this really long, tall building, right? Somebody is like, 6'4", another person is 5'4". The 6'4" guy can easily take 3 steps and he climbs, right? So if the 5'4" person says, I need to take a step just as big as this, otherwise I'm a failure, is foolish. The 6'4" guy might stop after like 1 story, but the 5'4" guy with 1 little step, he keeps going. All he has to do is take 1 step forward. And that's what I tell my kids. Don't worry about how bad you are. Ask yourself where you want to go and what you're doing about it. Okay? If you fail, you fail, but at least you'll have the respect that you gave it your 100% best. And I believe that, when you give your 100% best, you will have the respect that you did above and beyond what you could have done. And Allah opens the way. I mean, I'm a living proof. Every expert in India said I didn't have it, but I believe that I had it. So I ended up playing professional tennis where a lot of these people were nowhere close to it, So in Deen, like, I mean, I've been learning the Quran, the recitation and stuff. I've been trying to do a hifz. Please make dua that Allah grant me the tawfiq. And
mashallah,
there are days I can't do anything. So I'm happy if I memorize 1 word. I'm like, I just want to memorize 1 word today because that's all I can come up with. I just can't do anything else. And there are days I'll learn 2-3 lines in a day, So you take 1 step forward. That's all you want to do. Take 1 step forward. Every day, 1%. All I care about, this is one of the big things. We have a rule in our camp, the 1% rule. We ask ourselves at the end of the day, did we grow 1% today? And if we did, we're very, very happy. Because if somebody grows 1%, they don't go 365%. They go way more than that because compound effect kicks in. And I don't have the math right in front of me, but it is way, way more. It's almost like 3,700 times or something like that. Yeah, and so it is important for people to have the himma. You just have to have the himma that I can do anything I want if I put my mind to it. I ask Allah for help. He can open doors where there are no doors. And at the end of the day, I'm doing it for the sake of Allah. And I would urge all of these young students to think they can do anything they want, because think about it like this. I tell my kids this, imagine you have a really rich father and you want a toy, and you go to him and he said, Dad, I want this toy. He's not going to not give it to you, especially if it's good for you, right? The one behind us is to him is mulku samawati wal ard, is malikul mulk, is al-qadir. He can do anything. So we don't have to feel that we cannot do anything, because the one behind us, if we have his help, anything is possible. What we cannot imagine is possible. So let's have the highest aspiration. We are only you know this better than anybody else. How we view Allah, that's how Allah is to us. He's going to open doors especially for good deeds. You're trying to learn the deen, and Allah will give you the eloquence which nobody else ever had.
Jazakumullah khair. I think this was a very beautiful place to, on a strong point, to end our conversation today. And I think for all of us, Dr. Jawad or Brother Iqbal, if you want to share any closing remarks. But I think for me, whatever level you're at, just take it, as he said, just work on improving 1% at a time every day, and do not get fazed by failures, because those are all places and avenues for us to learn and improve. And even for example, no matter how old you are, you can start working on your hifd al-Quran. No matter how old you are, you can start working on your tajweed. And no matter how a person may not be eloquent, but still the doors of dawah are open. Alhamdulillah. So Jazakallah khairah. I think was found today's discussion very inspiring, and I hope Allah opens the doors for all of us, inshallah, to excel in our deen and our dunya. Dr. Jawad, Brother Iqbal, you want to say anything?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add, first of all, Jazakallah khair, man. Fazal, it was really nice to have you on. MashaAllah, your knowledge of the sports world has obviously precedes you, but your speaking today has obviously showed us that not only do you understand the sports world, but you understand deen, and your, MashaAllah, your frame of mind, the frame of reference for the world is with deen. And that's hard to find, when you have successful athletes. It's really inspiring for young students and young folks like my son, for example, to see for people like you who can walk the walk, right? Because there's a lot of people out there who can talk about ihsan, who can quote you many ayat or a hadith or a story of a nafsira, but to actually implement that in your life, to implement ihsan in your life is a lifelong ambition, of course, but you've clearly done that. So we hope that you come by and visit us in Chicago, and maybe Muhtisa, we need to put on at least a good weekend for him. We need to bring him on every other weekend and just have him do different things for us, especially when the gym is open, because somehow there's so many parallels from the sports world and the world of tazkiyah and tasawwuf. And I'm just hearing Sheikh Hussein in all of this, what he's saying. He sounds like Sheikh Hussein to me. Because there's so many parallels here, and I'm really inspired by it, and I'm just really happy to have met you in a virtual world. Inshallah, I'll meet you in the real world soon.
Inshallah.
Mufti Sahab, please send me the dua that you mentioned.
Yes, sure I will.
And Brother Fazal, if you don't mind, if you could just kind of share, maybe, do you have a website for your company, and where people can find out more about you? And because I honestly do think that there's a lot of opportunity available for Muslims to show their excellence in sports, and inshallah transfer that to their own personal realms. And I think that, mashallah, you get it. So I would love, if you were in Chicago, I would love to send my kids to you. So if you could give us a little bit more information about that.
Yeah, at level7tennis.com, the number 7 tennis.com, and inshallah, if Allah gives me the tawfiq, maybe I'll start a program in Chicago. That way I have an excuse, valid reason to come to Chicago all the time. I have a valid reason because I have
Is Mufti Azim not enough? I'm just kidding.
Azim is actually,
I really look forward to, inshallah, seriously thinking of making a summer camp, maybe just a weekend program, what you said, mental fortitude, creating this character building type of a camp. I think, Brother Fazal, please start thinking about it. We're ready to give you whatever resources you need, but I would appreciate if you start giving, while you have some time off from the tennis court because of COVID, this would be something to think about.
No, inshallah, definitely. Jazakumullah khair. Please keep me in your duas, and I hope I can stay on the course.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you so much.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Assalamu alaikum.